Consider two scenarios in which you keep your promise. You borrow 20 bucks from me and you say you're going to pay it back on Wednesday. And then I come to you on Wednesday and say, hey, can I have my 20 bucks now? And you say, okay, and you hand it over. Now, in the first scenario, you're doing it merely in accordance with duty. You don't think about it. Um, just kind of on autopilot, you just fork over the money without really weighing it or considering whether or not that's the right thing to do or considering what your duty is. Contrast that with another case where you consider, what about this action of paying back the money that I promised to pay back? Does it pass the categorical imperative test? Yes, it does. Does it pass the um, does it pass the other test? Yes, it does. Okay, so I see that this is my duty, and because I see that it's my duty, then I'm going to pay back the money. According to Kant, only this second action, the one that's done because it's one's duty, it's done from a sense of duty, it's done with that motivation, only that one has moral value to it. And only that one shows that you're a good person. And this is one of the other interesting ideas that Kant has. It's called the idea of a goodwill, the goodwill. By goodwill, Kant just means the desire or inclination to do your duty because it's your duty. And he claims that only this motivation gives moral worth to an action. And furthermore, this is really the only measure of human goodness as well. You are a good person to the extent that you have a goodwill. If you don't have a goodwill at all, you're not a good person. If you do have a goodwill, you are a good person. Now you might think, hey, having a goodwill is just one of many virtues. What about courage, perseverance, and intelligence, for instance? Aren't I a good person insofar as I'm intelligent or courageous or perseverant? Kant would say no, because if you don't have a goodwill, but you have courage, perseverance, and intelligence, those won't make you any better without a goodwill. Maybe you'll just be a master criminal because you're especially courageous, especially perseverant, especially intelligent. So it's only when other virtues are combined with goodwill do they enhance your goodness. Now, if you have a goodwill, then it is good that you have courage, intelligence, and perseverance, but not if you don't. So this is an interesting idea. Another very interesting set of distinctions Kant makes are as follows. He talks about three kinds of imperatives. An imperative is just a statement or a principle about what ought to be done. And he's making a general point about morality here as opposed to other things. First of all, there are rules of skill. Rules like hold the bat tightly, or if you want to avoid burning the cookies, only bake them for 20 minutes. Or if you want to be a good saxophone player, then you need to practice every day. Those are rules of skill. Now, a rule like that always has an if in it. And the rule is relevant to you only if you want to reach some goal. I mean, if you don't want to get a hit, then it doesn't matter if you don't hold the bat tightly. If you don't care about becoming a good saxophone player, then this suggestion that you should practice every day is irrelevant to you. If you don't care about whether the cookies are burned, then you can disregard this rule that says only bake them for 20 minutes. Then there are counsels of prudence, such as don't eat the paste if you want to be healthy. Don't become addicted to crack. Don't hang out with only ducks. That would inhibit your human development if you only sought the society of ducks. Don't spend all day watching reality TV shows, right, if you want to be smart. Um, with a counsel of prudence, it also assumes some goal. There's also that if there, right? It tells you what you should do if you want to reach a certain goal. If you want to be healthy, you shouldn't become addicted to crack. If you want to be healthy, don't eat the paste. If you want to be a fully developed human being, don't hang out with only ducks. If you want to be an intelligent, cultured person, don't only watch reality TV shows. And Kant contrasts statements like that, like those, rules of skill and counsels of prudence, with commands or laws of morality, such as don't steal. Now, the first two sorts of imperatives, statements about what ought and ought not be done, are, Kant says, merely conditional. They only apply on the condition that you really want some certain goal. And if you don't want that goal, those rules are irrelevant to you. But commands or laws of morality, Kant says, are not conditional, but rather what he calls categorical. Moral principles just say what just flat shouldn't be done. And it's not talking about something that's only relevant only if you have a certain goal. It's not don't steal if you want to be a good person. It's just don't steal. Even if you don't want to be a good person, still you're obligated to not steal. So it's not conditional on having some mere goal, some goal or aim. It just applies to you because you're a rational being, because you have knowledge and you have a concept of moral duty. So things like keep your promises, don't charge stupid customers a higher price than you charge smart customers, don't torture innocent people merely for the fun of it. Commands or laws of morality just apply to you, period. There's no way to sort of excuse yourself. So, well, yeah, I don't care if I go to hell. It doesn't matter. Still, it's wrong. This command applies to you. Don't torture innocent people merely for the fun of it. You say, well, I don't care what people think of me. It doesn't matter. Say, I don't care if it causes pain. It doesn't matter. You just still have this unconditional, categorical duty to not torture innocent people merely for the fun of it. So this is why he calls moral principles commands. He doesn't think of them literally as commands of God, but he does think as if, morality is kind of telling us what to do. And it's not telling us what we want to do, what we should do if we're trying to reach some goal. It's just flat telling us what to do. And that's a very interesting idea, and I think this is right. I think this is one thing that's distinctive of morality. Morality is not telling you just how to accomplish some goal. Morality is not telling you just how to watch out for your own self-interest, what's good for you. Morality is just telling you what you ought and ought not do, period. I want to consider a couple of objections in conclusion, but first of all, let me make some concessions. I think Kant is right about a whole bunch of things. I would say that motives are relevant to whether an action is right or wrong. I think John Stuart Mill is mistaken about this. I mean, torturing innocents merely for the fun of it is one thing, but torturing innocents because if you don't, the whole world will be destroyed, that would be a different action. And it seems like the difference in motivation would be relevant to evaluating those actions. So I agree with Kant that motives are relevant to evaluating actions, the moral worth of actions. Second, I think he's absolutely right that we often irrationally make an exception for ourselves. We think something just ought to be done, but then we make an excuse, and it's not a reasonable excuse. I also think he's right that people have a sense of moral duty, which is fairly uniform and fairly strong. We are rational beings, and in most cases we can tell what we ought and ought not do. I also agree that doing your duty because it's your duty has a unique kind of worth, and maybe it's better than just plain doing your duty for some other reason or for no reason. And finally, I agree that whatever is a duty for me would be a duty for anyone else in the same kind of situation. So let me consider a couple objections. One objection is that Kant's theory is too strict, because it seems to me that some actions have moral worth but they're not done solely from a sense of duty. Consider Mother Teresa. Suppose that she has trained herself to be a very compassionate person, And then she sees an abandoned orphan lying on the street in the gutter. And maybe, given the way that she's conditioned herself over her lifetime, she's just so overwhelmed by feelings of compassion and mercy that she can't help but take the orphan home with her. According to Kant, that action would have no moral worth. It would have no moral worth because it wasn't done solely from a sense of duty. It's part of the example that she doesn't consider whether this is her duty or not. It seems to me that his theory is too strict, and it ought to say that that does have moral worth. Or consider the scenario at the bottom here. There's an old lady being mugged by a thug here. This guy's stealing her purse. And on the right we have a strong young gentleman who is a football player, and for his whole life he has decided that he should use his size and strength to help the weak and the powerless. And when he sees this old lady having her purse stolen, he just automatically springs into action and jumps up to go help her. He's going to pound that guy and get the lady's purse back. And remember, according to Kant, this action of his has no moral worth because he's not doing his duty because it's his duty. Seems to me that it does have moral worth. And there's a more general point here. If Kant's theory were true, it would be arguably impossible to become a good person. If a good person is one who consistently and continually does what's right and what's praiseworthy. We are built so that we automatically run on autopilot most of the time. We simply cannot always, or even most of the time, do our duty simply because we apprehend it to be our duty. This would require constant reflection, constant attention to where our duty lies. And most of the time we don't act that way, and we're not capable, I think, of acting that reflectively all the time. So again, if it's possible to become a person who consistently does what has moral value, then Kant's theory can't be right, because Kant's theory would require something that is impossible given human nature. To be a good person is to be a person who habitually does what's right and what's praiseworthy. So to be a good person is largely to have the right habits, and that's what moral training is. Moral training is coming to get the right habits of action and thought and even feeling. It seems like it is possible to be that sort of person, but it wouldn't be possible if Kant's theory were true. So that's my second objection to Kant.